me do my little shitty intro. Coming out this podcast, just a man doing the best he can with what he got. And for the end of the year, I got a return guest, my homie, now living abroad, author L. Maxwell. How you doing, brother, man?
What to do, Marcus? Thank you for once again allowing me back on your channel. I appreciate you, forgiving me for the past comments. This time I do better. That's all I gotta say. I do better.
Not the case whatsoever, man. Tell the folks about your book.
But the book's not out yet, but it's been a long time coming. I wrote my first book about college life and the coming of age from a man's perspective, quote unquote, loosely based off of personal events. And then, of course, I'm married with kids, and my wife has been telling me, well, you need to write it from my perspective. I was like, okay, well, that is a good book idea. And I've just been putting it off, but finally decided to, now that I've had time while living in India, to just sit down and write and get back into it. And sure enough, it was quite an enjoyable write. And hopefully you all enjoy reading it just as much. And I hope to have done it justice for my wife, because she's been waiting to read it. She hasn't read it yet, but she's on the way to come visit me in about sometime next week. And I said, all right, you're going to have some good reading material. So she'll be the first review. And then I'll release it to the public if she allows me to, if she gives me the permission.
She will let you know. Oh. So you live in India right now. What is the biggest contrast between India and the United States right now? And what from the United States has followed you to India?
Biggest contrast. I mean, you know what? I can't really put my finger on anything different. They live exactly like the way, Americans live,
People?
No, I mean, they got free healthcare here. Wow. Ain't nobody shooting nobody. Food is super cheap. That's just like America, right? I went to a vending machine, and this is when I knew that something ain't right. I bought a can, or not a can, where they have bottles. I bought a bottle of Coca-Cola, good old Coke, the original classic recipe. Guess how much I paid for it? I mean, you might know, you've been to Japan.
$1?
I paid the equivalent of 15 cents USD, so 20 rupees. And I was just sitting there like, huh. And then I went to McDonald's. I bought a combo. Me, I like McDonald's. I'm an American bred man. $5, including the drink.
Including the drink?
Yeah, and I'm just trying to understand, like, McDonald's is expensive out here compared to what folks out here eat. Let me get a traditional Indian lunch. I paid like $1 for a traditional Indian lunch. $1 USD. And then I started looking at other stuff, like the price of goods. Like, you can get transportation, like a brand new car, brand new, off the lot with a warranty. I mean, they may not have the same, like components, or it's a brand you won't recognize, and the steering wheel's on the right side instead of the left side. But you can literally get a brand new car for like $6,000.
Right. Cars are super cheap in Japan as well. And that goes to one of the things I want to talk to you about, man, because 2025 has been a weird year. Because in 2024, during the campaign, promises was made, things were said, and it seems like all those things went out the window in 2025, which makes me think that, hey, man, maybe the folks who said they cared about these issues don't really care. And because one of the main things about 2024, you kind of hit on it, was affordability. People said things were too high. And like we were trying to show the whole economy. Remember that podcast we did? We was trying to show the whole economy in its totality, not just one cross section. We was like, hey, man, this is why the economy is decent and it's doing good. But now affordability and inflation has went up again, and these folks seem to not care about it.
It's grifters, man. It's just, you can run on one thing, but actions speak louder than words. Before Trump even came into office, this man was out here peddling Trump coin. And the fact that it didn't, immediately strike an emoluments clause issue just shows to me that, like, that was his test. That was his litmus test. Hey, if they don't stop me from doing this, I'm about to get away with murder. And fair enough, he did get away with murder. They're doing double taps in Venezuela. in
Hmm.
international waters. They doing they doing the most, and they signing laws that have no intention of abiding by. You know, the whole Epstein Transparency Act. I mean, that's just for show. Okay, we did. Leave us alone. No, you got to do stuff now, man. What y'all want from us? You don't see Clinton on these lists? I'm like,
Who
okay,
cares?
he can go to jail too. Like,
Right.
what is y'all doing?
You all can rot in the
And
same damn cell. Because let's go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room, right? About the Epstein files. The funny thing about that, I remember during the campaign trail, I counted 4 times Trump himself brought up the Epstein file. Pam Bondi said she had it on her desk. Cash Patel was actually doing a podcast at the time, and he was like, "Yo, we got to
yep,
bring these sex offenders to justice." And to be honest, I didn't really know about it. The right made it a big deal. And then they used it as a morality test to say, hey, you don't care about people because you don't know about the Epstein file. Trump is going to release these files. And then when he got in, everybody said it's a hoax. I'm like, if it's a hoax, it's a hoax. You told me that was real.
I mean, the dumbest thing, and you know that's back in the day. People talk about that, but more recently, there was this email that was, of course, what's the word? It was redacted, you know,
Mhm.
black boxes all across it, and it was in the files that they uploaded to the servers. You know, that's part of the Epstein Transparency Act was they had to make it accessible online for people to sift through. So they're like, all right, here go these files. Here, you happy? And like all those files are redacted as like useless on the surface. But the power of the internet, which just shows you how incompetent this administration is, the power of the internet, there's like, oh, let's see what they release. They don't even know how to redact files
They don't.
correctly. They found a file that was like some quote unquote mail that was sent and came back, and it was supposed to go to one of Epstein's buddies that was also serving time. And then, you know, it was pretty damning. It was, you know, basically calling out, Trump directly, saying that, you know, it's crazy that you and I are serving, prison time, that he's in office and all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, the DOJ gonna come back and say that it's a hoax, it's fake. And everybody says, how's it a hoax?
You
A
uploaded
hoax
it.
and it's fake. We got it from your site.
People are trying to make excuses and say, hey, they did that unredactable, redacted thing on purpose. And it's like, no, they're just incompetent. These folks are not good at their job. Like when you get a podcaster to run the FBI, you cannot be surprised when shit falls apart.
Man, we got a wrestler running the Department of Education, man. Come on now. We done seen Linda McMahon get power drive through a table by the Dudley boys.
She could take a hell of an RKO.
I'm not saying that ain't entertaining, but my thing is, why ain't kids around the nation, you know, breaking tables? Like that's what they should be doing. You know what I'm saying? It'll be like, hey, Linda McMahon taught us how to do this.
Well, you can't take nothing serious anymore. And that's kind of the problem. I don't
You gotta
know.
laugh. You gotta laugh. Or you gonna cry.
All this is fake. And I don't know what the most damning part about this year has been because it feels like it's been like 3 years. I'm not going to lie.
That man have been in office 11 going on 12. Man, it ain't even been a full year yet. It's crazy. I can't imagine what the New Year's posts are going to be about. If they out here doing a victory lap at the end of the year, pretending, you know, GDP being quote unquote up is, it means everybody up. I'm like, I mean, we can we see some sources? Because I mean, for 2 months we didn't get no employment figures because for
None.
some reason you had to fire the BLS director. But besides that, I mean, did you see the tirade that Trump went on Christmas Day? On the day of Christmas, he on Truth Social, he posted like 100 times, going off the cuff and just like unfiltered, just saying everything that came to his mind. And I'm just like, dude, just say Merry Christmas and call it a day. Go spend time with your kids, your grandkids. Do something. What is you doing?
When he made True Social, I actually thought it was a good idea.
He got banned from Twitter.
Well, he got banned for Twitter, and we don't have enough social sites. So you need competition, right? And that was a good move because then you can use your own platform to spread your word. Like strategically, damn good idea. The problem with that is somebody need to take away this man's phone. Like exposure and access is not necessarily a good thing.
But the thing is, he's not actually typing them. He has an assistant. He literally dictates, hey, write this, put it in caps. Make sure you put this beside it, emojis. Matter of fact, word for word, say it just like this. So someone is typing it. So there's a person that could just be like, okay, I sent it, Mr. President, and just never hit send and just, you know, like let him pretend that he did it. But but they're too scared to disobey him.
So he has
So
so he has somebody dictating and typing his truths out for
yes,
him.
yeah, he doesn't. He's the president. He doesn't type it himself. I mean, he might look at it himself, but have you seen? I mean, I'm not even trying to be funny, but it's debatable if he can read. It is debatable. There's been many accounts of times where he does not know how to read.
All I consume is, and dude don't have any friends. Like seriously, he ain't got no friends because a real friend would be like, "Hey man, don't put that out." Or a real assistant who's actually doing their job would be like, "Hey bro, I in good conscience, I can't put out some of
Right.
this stuff because it's going to make you look bad." And now the next question is, are they doing that? Is it even more wilder stuff out there the dude could be saying that somebody is editing and be like, "Nah, bro, I just can't put this out." That's the question. Because some of the stuff that man be letting fly is just stupid.
I mean, look what happened to his friends. I mean, the guy that was running mate, the VP, last time around, he
Oh
tried to
yeah,
get the man killed.
that's true.
JD Vance don't learn. All it takes is for you to have your political career threatened, and then you have to decide to finally follow the Constitution, and then now watch Trump gonna sick his people after you. That's all it's gonna take. So to me, it's just like they think that Trump's being a lame duck president, and he's just gonna buy out when his time comes. I ain't never seen somebody flout running a third term as a joke. You know what I mean? Obama never did it. Clinton never did it. All of these, everybody keeps saying he's just joking, but I don't think he's joking. He's trying to find ways to do a loophole. Like, oh, we're at war right now. We can't have an election. I'm telling you, he's trying to figure out a way to do something like that. Like he just did strikes in North Nigeria a couple days ago, and I'm just trying to figure out like, what are we doing? Ukraine war still ain't over.
Mm-mm.
We're supposed to be meeting with Zelensky in a couple of days, and Russia struck Kiev on the same day. They're supposed to be meeting or something like that. It's as much as we can resent one person, it's like the people that's really losing is everybody. You know what I mean? Like in the end, Trump made billions this term. He's said he
He
really
good.
don't care.
Yeah.
In the end of it, he's still gonna be a billionaire. Probably gonna have political immunity. Nothing's gonna happen. In worst case, most likely case, he's old. He ain't got that many years left ahead of him. He's an old man.
I've already made this prediction, and I'm not trying to say this, so CIA, FBI don't come knocking on my door. But I don't think the man gonna make it next year. I really don't, because once again, you're the leader of the free world, and age is a real thing.
This man's getting preventative MRIs. That's not a
Yes.
thing.
Mm-mm.
That is not a thing. I
Mm-mm.
mean, like, I don't want to see nobody suffer. Even when I heard Joe Biden had a cancer
Right.
diagnosis, I was like, man, that's tough because it's like cancer. The way it kills you, it ain't quick and painless. So you don't want to see nobody go out like that.
Father Time's undefeated, and we all on that slow march. But one thing I noticed with this, all the Trump's movements make sense only if you look at it as a bucket list. If you look at it as, hey man, I'm trying to get all my shit off before I pass, that's the only way this shit makes sense. They're literally letting this man do whatever he wants to do, knowing that, hey, he ain't got much time left.
He know he don't have much time left. So look at his behavior. This man naming a ballroom after himself. The
Mm-hmm.
man put his name on the Kennedy Art Center. Like
Mm-hmm.
people don't do that unless they feel as if their time is coming to an end and they want to
Yep.
make sure that they are immortalized. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So that's what he's doing. He's within his right as president. He's going to try to do whatever he wants to do. But is it going to stick in the long term? It really
No,
don't matter.
it's not going to.
In the end, 1,000 years from now, ain't nobody going to remember our names.
They're not.
So for my books are they're gonna outlast everybody. They're gonna be classics. Call me Shakespeare.
I mean, but you're honestly making a good point, though, right? Like your
Mhm.
work can be immortalized. You can have remnants of yourself left behind. But this
Mhm.
does look like a man. You can even see it when he's talking about, hey, I'm trying to get into heaven. I don't know if I'm going to get into heaven. This is a man who's reflecting and contemplating on his life.
Well, I heard he's Jewish now.
Is he Jewish now? I mean, all the money he's given to Israel, he might as well be.
It was the other day. I can't pinpoint who it was. He had Trump with them, and he was like saying, "Everybody, this is our first Jewish president. Just letting you guys know, this is actually our first." And Trump didn't deny it. He wasn't like, "No, I'm Christian" or anything like that. He just shook his head in agreement. I was just like, "But not that it matters, but at the same time, I'm just kind of like, aren't the evangelicals like your biggest support base? Like, is that not kind of I thought that's one of the reasons why they voted for you.
Yeah, let's put a cap off this. And let's just go ahead and say evangelical means white. it's even polled as white. When you say evangelical, it doesn't have anything to do with Christianity. It doesn't have anything to do with being Christ-like. It has nothing to do with religion. It's a proxy word for white. In 2026, I need people to admit that you're not religious. You don't like follow any of the tenets of Christianity. You're just using that as a proxy to do whatever you want to do. And in most cases, get your vile racist rhetoric off and have a shield under it and use Jesus as a shield. Like, these folks are not religious. Like, we got to start pretending like these folks really care about God, care about people. It's about capitalism, money, and power.
They use religion when it's convenient. But if you actually bring scripture into the picture and start like asking, okay, you said you're religious, right? Thou shalt not covet another man's wife. What's going on here now? You know what I mean? So
nobody reads the book and claim they follow. Like, that's the first thing. Like, nobody reads these books. Nobody can point out scripture. Nobody knows the philosophy. Nobody can even pick out the right denomination. And you got 50 different denominations in America, and none of them folks can tell me which one is the right one. Nor should you have to, because it's all allegorical stories and stuff you can live by. But that being the case, man, folks just say whatever they want to say, knowing that you're not going to go back and read that book. You're not. You're not going to read it. Like, let's just stop lying. Most of you Christian people out there have no idea what those books say. You don't.
I mean, if they did know what they say, it would be very difficult to say, I'm a follower of Christ and I follow his teachings. In the same vein, continue to say something along the lines of, I support this candidate because, he's going to deport all the immigrants. He's going to do all this and that. And it's just like, hold on, what would Jesus do?
He was an immigrant, an illegal immigrant, by the way.
People don't understand. Like, we're not too far gone from Christmas. Why was Jesus born in Bethlehem to begin with? Was he trying to evade like taxes or something? Did he have to seek asylum in Bethlehem for some reason? Because Jerusalem was tripping?
Just wanted a better life, man. Like, nope, nobody cares. They don't care. So just, once again, just get your hate off and just really say what you mean. I would actually respect these folks more if they just come out and say, man, hey, America is just made for white people, and I feel like white people should be entitled to everything, and I don't want nobody who's brown or black to get any of these benefits. Because once again, I haven't seen anybody with overstayed visas from Canada or any of these European countries getting rounded up. So until I see that, let's just admit it, man. You're just trying to make America white again. How you know this immigration thing was a scam? Because when they was talking about deporting people, nobody actually mentioned making the intake process more streamlined.
No, people getting deported at their hearing, their final hearing, to become naturalized. They picking them up right then and there. This stuff disrupting the process. Oh, we need to look at that application one more time, make sure they ain't lie.
Well, first, people don't even understand the application process, and this is something that I learned this year. People don't know. It's not easy to fill out that damn application. If you need a lawyer to do the immigration process, it already shows the system is failed. And a lot of folks are going to hear me say that and going to be like, well, hey, Marcus, if it's that important, you should be able to get a lawyer. And then I'm going to ask you, like, what other important things do you need a lawyer for? Did you need a lawyer to get your license? How about a mortgage? How about student loans? Did you get a lawyer for that? But for some reason, for citizenship, which a lot of y'all got just by being lucky enough to be born in America, we need a lawyer to fill out the application. That's a sign that the system is flawed. And then it takes up to a year to even get approved for a visa. Nobody wanted to make that more streamlined. Nobody wanted to kill out the bureaucracy of getting a visa, but they just wanted to deport people.
Well, I mean, most countries do have a language requirement that you have to speak the local language in order to pass your fluency of becoming a citizen.
Not a visa, though. I'm not talking about citizenship. I'm talking about visa. I'm talking about coming here and working.
Yeah,
like, most people don't want to be Americans. Like, and that's a misnomer, too. Americans have this sense that everybody wants to be American. No, a lot of folks just want to come over here and work, get that money, and go back because that money stretched farther in their land. And here's the thing. A lot of American companies want to exploit workers and pay them less. So it's a match made in heaven. All that I want you to do is pay your taxes, right? And a lot of this is not being done because it's being under the table. So that's the loophole I really want people to look at. It's like, man, it's a reason why people are hiring quote unquote illegal immigrants.
I am perfectly fine with creating a system that is, like you say, easy to understand, and it creates a framework that is that is justified. But at the same time, enforce it on both sides. You talk
Yes,
about visas, well, what about these employers that continuously harbor or pay people under the table? I don't ever see them get a slap on the wrist, lose their business
nothing.
permits, nothing. It's always they always go after the quote unquote
Exploited.
criminals, the ones that are being exploited. It's like they're getting paid under the table, getting paid less than what a citizen would have gotten paid. And they can't even speak up for themselves for worker rights. You don't know what type of conditions they're working in, because if they say anything, guess what? The employer is just gonna, you know, deport them and say like, all right, we don't want to do what I tell you to do, then, you can get out the whole country. So you imagine working in those conditions, but the employer is just like, oh, I like, I don't see them get fined. You don't see them lose their permits or licenses or nothing,
Tyson
you know?
Chicken was one of the biggest employers of undocumented workers.
So why do you think that is the case? Do you think people just come out of high school and just say, I want to go work at a, at a butchery or work at a slaughterhouse? You know what I mean? I'm not saying I don't think anything's against doing that type of job, but I know that job is laborious. It requires a certain type of mentality of just, like, hey, you got to get through it. This is a means to an end kind of thing. And most Americans won't even put themselves in that position to be humble enough to just take a consistent job like that, because they feel like it's beneath them.
It's a double-edged sword, right? So that goes back to the undercurrent of affordability and the lie that we tell ourselves, like all Americans. The reason why a lot of our stuff is cheap is because we're exploiting workers who make it and process it. So Tyson's can sell that chicken at a lower margin because they got undocumented workers they're paying less.
Nah, the, the food ain't cheap. Here's the thing, it's cheap because we think it's cheap based off of what someone else is charging, but everybody is overcharging. Everybody is overcharging.
That's fair.
Like, I've been living in India long enough to know and come to the conclusion that everything that we purchase in America, we are being price gouged because the dollar has so much strength. And people have gotten used to paying that much, and they just assume, well, inflation's 2% every year, so of course it's going to go up a little bit, in 10 years or whatever, right? No, it's not the case. So let me just go on a little tirade before we get off this topic. I took some time to look at how Indian economics work. Why is everything so much cheaper in India? Of course, supply chain things are closer, the labor rates are cheaper, and just overall, just the proximity of the workforce is so much higher that they can afford to, like, you don't want to work, I got someone else who can do the job for the same amount of money. So when you add all those components there, that's just one part of the cog that causes why the cost of goods is cheaper. But also, India has a requirement where you can't even charge X amount of dollars more than what they allow you to. We have MSRP in America,
Mm,
manufacturer suggested retail price. India has MRP, maximum retail price. So
mm.
the government steps in and says, you can't even charge more than this. You can charge less, but you can't charge more than this. And the businesses still stay here and participate in the economy because of one reason: economies of scale. There's a 1.4 billion people here. Even though your margins shrink from 30 or 40% down to, let's say, 5%, your volume is so high that you still end up making billions in profit. Guess how much my
Hmm.
phone bill is here in India?
What,
The
about
same
20?
internet, 5G, unlimited data, all that.
About $20?
My phone bill a month, unlimited, and this is an expensive plan, is $7 a month.
Well, damn. Well, damn.
And you can't tell me, well, it's because, they use a different technology, it's inferior, or your service is probably bad. I'm in the middle of nowhere, literally in the countryside of India. And I get 3, 4 bars of 5G. I have a Samsung phone. I don't even need a Samsung phone, but I brought mine from America. I locked it. It works just fine. If anything, people look at my phone and be like, hey, that's an expensive phone. And because most phones are, over here, they don't pay for that much and technology is very expensive in India. But besides that, everything else is cheaper, you know. And it's just because the government steps in. It's like we got 1 billion people. We're gonna look after our people. Most of them can't afford what you're trying to charge them in America anyway. So, you can't do business even if you did charge that much. But we're not even gonna allow you to attempt to charge that much because we have 1 billion people we gotta look after. Versus America is like let capitalism reign free. And how much freedom you have when you're suppressed financially. How much your phone bill in America? Like what, $70, right? Per line?
When I got back to America, man, I instantly went for the cheapest prepaid plan. So I went to Mint Mobile because I looked at it. I'm like, okay,
Yeah, that's $25 a month. Yeah.
yeah, $25 a month. So that's what I paid, 25, and that is really more than I was paying in Japan for inferior service. Because once again, my stuff was lickety split fast in Japan, not so much here in America.
I've used Mint Mobile for my kids. I know it's not 100% unlimited, but but here's why Mint Mobile exists. Mint Mobile is using a T-Mobile network, AT&T
Yes,
network. They're buying that extra bandwidth that they have additional capacity for, and they lease it to them,
yes.
right? So basically, they have all this extra bandwidth. They're like, hey, we don't have subscribers for. We can't get enough subscribers to buy it through AT&T or T-Mobile directly. Let's just lease this extra bandwidth that we own to these little smaller providers, and then let them make a little bit of money. And they just the way they would get around it is they like, all right, well, you can only use this much data, but we'll charge you cheaper than the major rates, and we're using the same network. So what does that tell you? It's the same technology. AT&T, T-Mobile, whoever, right? They could charge you less, but they choose not to because they want to make the most they can of the people that are willing to pay that much under the guise of our network is better.
Stay right there for a second. Like to stay there for a second, because that's kind of the problem with America right now. It's a problem of excess and charge everything we can for people who are overpaid for it. And then what we can't sell for cheaper. And that's kind of the same thing that's happening with our healthcare, right? Like if you're in the top 10%, you get the best healthcare in the world. But it's the rest of the 90.
You don't want me to get started on how much healthcare costs here a year for a family of
Oh, I
six.
do, because I can tell you how much it costs in Japan. Yeah, because and that's the problem. I tell people, y'all need to travel.
$100 for the
Four-
year.
$400 for a family of what?
6. Oh, well, you're gonna say, oh, their healthcare is worse out here.
It's not.
I'm pretty sure Indian doctors are some of the best doctors you can
Your
get
doctor
even
is
in
Indian and
America.
American. I'm willing to bet. I'm willing to
Mhm.
bet one of your doctors is Indian and American or Nigerian. I'm willing to bet that. Yeah.
But that goes back to what you're saying. There's this prejudice where it's like I can't wake up out of this delusion because something tells me that it's too good to be true, and it's like no. We live in just think about it from a global standpoint. There's 7, 8 billion people in the world. You think that only in America people are living and surviving? I'm not even talking about thriving, just surviving. Do you think other countries don't know how to survive in a somewhat like, livable standard that you would agree with? You know? I'm not gonna lie. One of my main concerns with India was I was concerned about potable water and how bathrooms are operated, or just kind of where was I going to get food or electricity. Right? People say electricity is not as stable here. I mean, yeah, I've seen some blackouts, but it's nothing that lasts more than like a 20 seconds. I've had all the bathrooms I've been around have been fine, have been acceptable, and am I going to say that's everywhere? No, but even in America, there's some
Beat me
parts of
to
time
it.
you're like, I ain't finna stop here. I'm not finna stop here. I'm wait till I see that Holiday Inn on the side of the highway before I pull over. If you got to go to the bathroom, right? It's the same thing.
Funny you say that. In Japan, I was there for 12 years. 12 years. I just want to say, during that 12 years, I never experienced a blackout ever. But when I went back to America, within the first year, I kid you not, the first year of me being back in America, 5 times electricity went out. 5 times.
Yeah,
3 of them was at my work, my place of employment. Just went out. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? They're like, oh, it happens in summer. I'm like, what?
and the point I'm trying to make is just think of it like this: people do business globally. People in America go to places in other countries to go to visit other sites, other headquarters, whatever, other people, suppliers, all that kind of stuff. And likewise, those companies from those countries come to America to visit. There is a just like how English is the international language of business. There's an international standard of living. That
Mm,
is global. Like, you're not gonna have somebody from Japan come to America and just you just throw them in a Motel 6 or something like that and be
mm-mm,
like, "Hey, it's better than what you got at home." No, they would feel disrespected. Likewise, if you would go to Japan, they're gonna put you in a nice hotel. These
mhm.
places exist everywhere. There's gonna be parts of the world where it's like, run down. I mean, just think about any major city. You're gonna see parts of their downtown or major infrastructure that's falling, or that you're like, hey, they need to address this, or I don't go to that part of town. It's the same way out here. You don't see it until you travel for yourself and you start to come to the realization that it's like, you love your country and you want them to do better. But the problem is, if they don't admit that they aren't keeping up, there is no desire to do better. If you keep telling everybody everything's great, what's there to fix? So you just keep lying to your population. Everything's great. There's nothing to fix, guys. We're doing great. Like, no, we are falling behind. We are the richest country in the history of the world. And it just baffles me, the technology that's going around in other countries that we probably created that we didn't take advantage of.
Well, that's part of the problem, right? We need to travel, and I keep advocating travel because you realize how much you're being exploited. That goes to the ignorance though, because people don't know what America pays for. They don't know what their subsidies pay for, right? When you start finding out what you're subsidizing, then you should be demanding lower prices because that's what the subsidies are there for, to try to make things lower.
All I got to say is, if a company don't pay taxes, or at least they don't pay full taxes, they get some sort of tax breaks, tax cuts, subsidies, or whatever they do to not pay their fair share of taxes, like anybody else that makes a check, that does earn income. I feel like, you know, they should be all right. Well, you can't charge Americans full price if you don't want to pay American full taxes. You know what I mean? All right, you get 30% haircut on your taxes. You better do a 30%. We're gonna cap your retail price or something. It's unfortunately, that sounds like that terrible word socialism, when the government tells
And
you
it
what
is
to do.
socialism. It's socialism for the risk, but it's not socialism for the profits, right? So we'll socialize the risk. We'll say, hey, man, we'll give you this money to go take risks, go try to find this vaccine, go try to make this new technology, get this EV up and running. We'll give you money for the risk. But as soon as you start making profits, hey, man, that's all you. And that's kind of the problem with Americans. Once again, we don't know what we're paying for, but they convince you that somehow we have a deficit because the poorest people are not making more money. Then you ask the question, well, who's giving them the money?
But there's a company called Huawei that's been banned in the United States
Yes.
due to a quote unquote threat of
Yeah. Spy.
like a national interest, national security, blah blah blah. But I also read that Huawei had done a study in America and also other Western countries to figure out what is the best way, or what type of company structure would be best to help kind of like, maintain a workforce and keep people motivated to work and increase the highest output and productivity. They came to the conclusion that profit sharing with their employees was actually the most efficient way to maintain your workforce in terms of keeping people from quitting, keeping people motivated, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's how they run their company now in certain sites. And once that kind of came out, like, coincidentally, America was like, "Hey, man, we can't have you doing business in America." Spread them ideas like that. You mean to tell me, if the company make more money, you gonna pay your employees more? That's crazy. Which is funny. Which is kind of funny how we got to this topic. Didn't you hear about that one company that got sold for $1.3 billion? And as a thank you to his employees, he split like between 400 employees a $200 million bonus. They all
Yes, I
got
did.
checks for like $400,000, or $500,000.
Hmm.
Like a dude said, "Hey man, you made me $1 billion. At least I can give y'all a quarter of it." You know, don't some of them people were literally able to retire,
Hmm.
start their own business, do their own thing, because he sold the company. He's like, he was like, "Look, y'all took care of me. I'm gonna take care of y'all." So
I struggle to ask myself the question as a capitalist, how much money is too much money? Should you have a trillionaire? And on paper, you can say, yeah, but morally, is it right to have somebody with $1 trillion? Because there's no way that you can ever work yourself into $1 trillion. When you do the math, the math doesn't add up. So I asked myself, if you're hoarding all this money and the share is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, like the 1% is getting most of it. First, we got to admit trickle down doesn't work. We've been trying this for a long time. And second of all, when are we going to regulate this and say, hey, man, you need to give out more money, especially if you want to take down the deficit? And just to make it simple, a deficit is the money you owe. You owe this money. And the only way the government makes money is by bringing in revenue through taxes. That's how they get their money. So if you got a deficit, there's a shortfall. The money's not coming in. But now you got all these companies on the S&P 500, $1 trillion market cap. NVIDIA just hit a $5 trillion market cap. And a lot of folks don't know NVIDIA is an American company, which, hey, you're stupid. And then you got Apple, $5 trillion market cap. If you have a deficit, you go to where the money is at. You shouldn't be able to at least not give tax cuts anymore. But somehow we've convinced everybody it's the poor people who are causing this deficit. And I'm just like, make this make sense.
It doesn't make sense, but at the same time, it just goes back to the principle: money's not real anyway. It's just crazy.
True.
It's crazy that we would argue so much about something that ain't real. And in actuality, really, what is real is just kind of like what kind of impact you can leave in the world on your own terms, in terms of your local community, your little circle that you possess. The people you say hey to on the street. What kind of little impact you can do. That's really the only thing you can control. How much money you make, money comes and go. It don't matter how much I make. I feel like it always seems like it's never enough in terms of keeping up, right? Like when I was younger, and I ain't trying to flex on nobody. When I was younger, I was thinking that, man, you make 50, 60, $70,000, man, you rich, right? Back in the 90s, 80s, and that actually was true.
Was.
And I was like, well, dang, if I ever make 6 figures, you'd be rich. Like, okay, and I get there, and it's like, am I? And then, and it is just like, and now I come to the realization, at least when it comes to money, it's not about how much you make, it's how much you keep, and how does your money work for you. Um, but it's hard to keep if you don't make enough, right? So then you have to figure out how can you control your spending. And even then it seems like even when you try to control your spending, they just charge you more anyway. Oh, well, you eventually gonna need this. And when you do, we just gonna try, like, look at how much cars cost. It don't make no sense.
The average car is $50,000 now, and it's leaning more towards the luxury market because once again, the market share is for people who got more. The people who got more money is the 1%. So yeah, of course they're leaning towards them.
Let me just touch on the topic again of how Americans are being screwed royally, especially when it comes to cost of goods. There's a car out here that I really like. It's called the Mahindra BE6. It's like a SUV, electric, and they even have a Batman edition, like the Batman. Like it looks like a black, like a Batmobile as an SUV. It's a great 6-seater, 500-kilometer range, all that kind of stuff. When I saw the price tag for the Batman edition, which was like under 40,000 US, I was like, this would easily be $100 thousand in America. Then you do your research. Why can't we get this in America? I'm sure they would sell it if Americans, there's a market for it. I would want to buy it, and it's because they put tariffs on electric vehicles outside of the US that aren't specific brands like Tesla or whoever. And the tariffs are sometimes 200%. So that same car that would have been $40,000, you wouldn't be able to get it any less than 120,000, because guess what? That competes right with the Tesla Model X. And in my mind, I'm just kind of like, so basically they can't beat, they claim to be the best cars, but then when somebody else does it better for cheaper, they won't even let you participate. So even if there was a solution where somebody can come in and help us fix some of these affordability issues, the government, instead of saying, "Hey, Tesla, you need to charge less," no, we're gonna make sure no one that can come in that can charge less to make you compete. Talking about capitalism, that's not capitalism. That's like the anti-capitalist. You're making it where
No
where
competition. Yeah.
there's no competition. Even when there is competition.
But it's an imaging problem, Max. And the problem is that we have a imaging problem in America where we don't know how life is outside of America. Because I tell everybody, in Japan, it was the greatest place I ever lived. Like living I'm talking about being able to afford a lunch, being able to go outside, have fresh air, be convenience of just hopping on a bus. You know the bus was going to be on time. Hopping on the subway, knowing that you can get to place. If I wanted to go to Osaka from Tokyo, man, being able to spend $30 to get there and then just walk around and go back the same day. Life was better. In America, we equate life with money, and that's a super ultra capitalistic way of looking at things. And we've convinced ourselves that, hey, man, if I keep on working and I hustle hard, I'm going to be rich.
No, 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 no. You should be rich. If you hustle hard, you work good, and you put in your time, you should be rich enough to live comfortably.
But it's not happening. You got to ask yourself, why is it not happening? And I got to do a podcast on this to let people know that you're living a delusion.
It's not a left or right thing. It is literally the people that are in charge right now. And I don't want to just blame it all on all the boomers, but all these policies that we are inflicted by, they weren't created by me and you,
They weren't.
millennials or Gen X. I mean, Gen X just now getting in the picture to legislate. So all these economic policies came from boomers and before, silent generation on them. They quote unquote said they did it better. They worked harder. Okay, you're right. You did work harder. Yeah, when you worked, you was able to afford school because it was maybe 2,000 for your whole degree. And you was getting paid $2 an hour or something like that.
And then they turned around and made fake scarcity for us in order to make their
Yep.
houses more valued. It's like, hey, man,
Yep.
I was able to buy a house. So now I'm going to make it impossible for you to buy a house because now that's going to bring the value of my house higher. They did all these legislations to say, hey, man, you're right. I worked hard. I got this money, but nobody behind me can get the same thing. So you're 110% right. That's what it did.
They won't admit that they made the game harder to participate in while they sit in the box office seats looking down at people because, but it's very simple. Back in the day, you want to get a job, what you did, assuming printers don't exist yet, what would you do? You went down the street, started shaking hands, right?
Yep.
Hey, I need a job. I need a job. And for some reason, that job you picked up throwing newspapers or working at the soda pop shop, or whatever, was enough to get you that bike. And now you can do something else. Oh, you start mowing lawns. You were able to somehow make it doing little stuff like that. People, are you saying people today can do the same thing? No, you got to get a LinkedIn profile. You got to have CV updated. You got to have degrees upon degrees.
Stop right there. That right there. Because I'm glad you said that. Because here's the problem, right? And I hate this revisionist history. The reason why you have more people with more degrees and more people getting certifications is because they made it requirements, right? So all these student loans that everybody
They're
got.
just gatekeeping. They're just gatekeeping. They kept moving the goalposts.
And on top of that, they got rid of training departments, man. People don't remember back in the 90s, dude, you could start a job and you went to training for 3 months. They trained you on how to do that job. They had people in the company whose only job was to train you on how to do this job proficiently. They got rid of that because college was supposed to be, okay, well, you get your experience in college. And then what happened was people like you and me, we graduated and it's like, oh, just playing, dog. What's your experience?
I'm not anti-education. I'm anti like, why does education cost so much for the job that don't pay
Bingo.
that much? That's what
Bingo.
I'm against. Because to me, everybody gotta get educated. You gotta go to tradesman school to be a plumber. You
Yes.
gotta go to medical school to be a doctor. I don't want nobody just doing it off of YouTube tutorials or something like that. But you gotta have some sense. You gotta be able to know how to read, to follow a manual. You gotta have some sense. Like education is important. How we dictate it or how we orchestrate what keeps people from certain fields, that's fine. But make sure it commensurates the skill. So if you're going to school and it costs $50,000 to get a degree, the job you're gonna get better cost at least $50,000 a year. You know, you can't be sitting there telling me, oh, you need $100,000 degree to make $20,000 a year.
So that's the thing. You hit the nail on the head. Like when we do education reform, your degree should not cost more than the average salary of you coming out. So if you want to major in broadcasting, cool. Just know that, man, when you get out, dog, your first job is probably going to be $10.35 an hour.
Start publishing wages. Start publishing these wages. Be like, hey, all right, you graduated from University of Memphis. Okay, cool. Well, all right, you got a job. Cool. All right. Well, what degree you have? All right, how much they paying you? And they put that up front. So whenever somebody, you can be anonymous. You can put anonymous names to the company, name to the person getting paid, and that way the person that's thinking about joining that field, they'll see exactly what you can pay and they can make a conscious decision. Is this a good return on investment? And matter of fact, put that definition on the top of the application. ROI
Return
equals
on investment.
how much you spend versus how much you gonna get. If anything is less than if anything is less than 50%, think again. Oh snap, OnlyFans.
OnlyFans. I think we cracked the code on education reform though, because if you just charge the baseline level for all gen ed classes, because everybody has to do gen ed, and then for your major, whatever the starting salary is for every major, that major should cost half of that. So if you're only going to make 30,000 coming out of college, that degree should not cost more than 15,000.
I'm not going to say exactly what the percentage should be, but it should be formulaic. It should definitely be tied to some index that's objective. That they gathered up all the salaries within 100 miles of this university. This is what they're making, because you have to assume if you go to the university, most of those alumni are going to be local. They're going to go back into the communities.
They
What's
are.
the purpose? What's the purpose of that of going to school? You go back to your community and bring it up, right? That's you're not going to a school unless you go to Harvard to and want to live in Boston, I guess. But aside from that, you know,
They don't make it easy for out of state tuition either those, right? So you're right. Most of the people, and that's what the flaw of me. Like if I had a chance to do it over, man, I love the University of Tennessee at Martin. But what I would have did was my last year, I would have transferred to somewhere I really wanted to live, because you make networks and connections in college in the community. You do your internships there. You make all that stuff
now
there. So I wish I would have did
shameless
there.
plug, shameless plug. I ain't gonna say the same thing because Marin is where I met my wife. So that's how I wrote these books. Just letting y'all know. If you want a small town college romance novel, I'm your guy, L. Maxwell. Find me on the Amazons.
Hey man, we're gonna end the podcast right there because this has been great. That's L. Maxwell. Check out his new book. And
it's 2 a.m. right here in India.
Yes,
I gotta be at work in about 5 hours.
brother, man, thank you for closing the year out for me, man. And
Hey, anytime, man. Anytime. I just appreciate you still reaching out to me. I'm coming back to my roots. I'm an Asian man in an Asian land. And I feel like it's like a full circle.
well, it's funny, right? Because I hear color, and a lot of folks hear color. They don't want to admit it.
You can hear color?
Yeah, and when we hear your color, man, a lot of folks don't know you're Asian. I never put that out there.
I'm Asian? What color am I supposed to be? Orange? Because I went to Tennessee?
Come on, man.
I know the president orange.
Look, man, we can tell who you hung around. Like that.
Yeah, I around my people, the Asian people.
Mm-hmm.
You got rice?
Yeah.
That's me.
Right.
All right, man. Appreciate it, man. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Talk to you. Hopefully I see you get on the podcast earlier than the first quarter or the second quarter of the year. Hit me up.
All right, brother, man. Be safe out in the streets.